Okay, let's kick it off. All right, so welcome everybody to our DFW Environmental Pros September webinar. Super excited, a really great speaker for you guys today, a really interesting topic. So welcome. If you've not been to one of our events, one of our meetups or webinars, we're really glad that you're here. So if you don't already know about DFW Environmental Pros, maybe you just happened upon this event. So this is a free networking group in DFW and beyond. Basically, anybody's invited. Totally unofficial, free, no cost, no pressure. Basically, just an opportunity to be able to meet up with like-minded environmental health and safety professionals, whether it's through a networking setting or through events like this, webinars. So we meet once a month, whether it's virtual or in person. So we always have a little bit of something going on. So definitely, if you're not already connected with our LinkedIn page, do so because we got a lot of goodies for you. These three gals right here, I'm one of the gals. There's me, Abby Holovach. But we found this group, I guess, about 2 years ago. So Alyssa and Ashley, we all kind of came together to put this group together. Just an opportunity for folks. Again, no pressure. It's free and unofficial. So it makes it a little bit more fun. Again, it's kind of no strings attached. So we've had a great time being able to kind of give back to the community and share that wealth of knowledge. So again, if you're not already connected with our page, definitely do so. We share job postings. We share, any other type of maybe events that are coming up with other groups in the area. There's a lot of other environmental professional groups, so we like to share that information as well. We also will do a spotlight if you want to be spotlighted. Maybe you're looking for a new role or something like that. We also will do that for you. So take full advantage of that. You got a job you want to post, hit us up. We'll share it for you. So just a few tidbits about the group in case you weren't already aware. But with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing. Let Stan share. So I'm really excited to hear Stan's presentation today about venomous snakes here in North Texas. I've never met Stan in person, but I feel like I know him already. So I follow him on LinkedIn. I love, hearing all of his real world experiences because he definitely has, quite the tenured past and experience. So he's got a lot of good stuff for us today. So with that, Stan, I will let you take the reins.
All right. You should be able to see my screen now. It's a regular slide, identification tips for venomous snakes of DFW North Texas. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, good deal. My name is Stan Flahaut. I'm an HSE specialist, recently promoted area manager for Explorer Pipeline. Most of my background has to do with commercial hazmat. I retired from the Arlington Fire Department after 22 years. And during that whole time and sometime after I retired there, I worked for environmental companies, some of them high hazard emergency response, train wrecks, and all that. My major claims to fame were responding to the Gulf oil spill on skimmers and doing near and offshore skimming, onshore safety, and then I made a big train wreck in Graniteville, South Carolina. Some of you may remember that one. Had chlorine derailment, and I managed a very, very large entry team going into that deal. So got some various things that don't matter about this particular thing I'm presenting today. So I'll get right to it. All right, so it hasn't escaped my attention that there's probably several of you in the background there that have extensive wildlife backgrounds. I'm not an authority on snakes. I'm a snake enthusiast, and the information I'm sharing is mainly what I've learned from herpetologists that author Facebook pages for the purpose of public education. So it's secondhand information that I present a lot of this, but I can tell you I've learned so much following these pages because these people that moderate on these pages, they are serious about snakes and other reptiles. So what do? Well, they offer the ability for a novice snake enthusiast to post snake photos so they can be properly identified. And they also dispel many myths and educate people about the ecological benefits of snakes, both the venomous and the non-venomous. And in most cases, the admins courteously educate and they don't tolerate ridicule by followers towards less educated comments. So you'll see on a lot of internet places, if somebody says something really not very smart, they don't get battered. They get courteously corrected. And so that's a nice feature that you don't normally see on the internet. So, like I said, new followers join all the time on these snake pages. My particular one is the uh, let's see, it's on here. It's this one. All right. What kind of snake is this? North Texas Education Group. Well, this is a summary of it, and I'll get to that in a minute. Um, so one of the things that you'll see on there is they really don't tolerate snake killing. And by the way, by virtue of the fact that you're here, I'm going to think that pictures of snakes don't freak you out. There are some people out there that if you show them a photo of a snake, they cannot contain themselves. It freaks them out really bad and scares them. So if you're one of those people, you need to be warned ahead of time that there are photos of real snakes in this presentation. So you see a lot of people that say, I kill all snakes, and they say things like a shovel will take care of that. My 12 gauge will make short work of it. Only good snake is a dead snake. And all I can say is if that's your attitude, then bless your heart. And I'm going to try and change your mind a little bit. A lot of us in here are in the environmental business, and snakes are a part of the environment and the ecosystem, and they serve a very valuable part of our ecosystem. So, as I said, this North Texas Education Group, What Kind of Snake Is This, is a Facebook group founded by a herpetologist. It's a great place to learn about snakes that live in North Texas. You can post questions, discussions. All comments should be helpful and scientifically accurate. They have some rules. Please leave identification to people who know what they're talking about, because there's no guessing. You can put a photo of a snake on there and say, I think this is such and such. What do you guys think it is? And they accept that. But in the subsequent comments, if you misidentify, it will get deleted and you'll get called out. So no viral photos or videos. Those get deleted right away. It's only for members of the group to post their photos. Right, so let's kick this thing off to the case in point. One thing that you'll learn when you get on these groups immediately is that if you post a photo and you do not post the location, they will ask you, where is this? There's very good reason for wanting to know where it is, because part of your identification for snake is the location. Snakes have a range. For example, many of the snakes, we have quite a few cottonmouth, some people call them water moccasins, in our area, and you can see in that green area that is their range. So if someone posts something outside of that range and says, I think this is a cottonmouth, and I'm in Utah or something, they're going to say pretty quickly, if you're in Utah, that is not a cottonmouth, and they'll try and help you figure it out. But you can see, for instance, on the cottonmouth, we've got plenty of those in our area. Then there's a hybrid, excuse me, I'm sorry. There's a hybrid area there that's shown in orange, and then there's a Florida cottonmouth all through there. They all look very similar to me. I can identify them all pretty easily. I may not be able to say whether it's a Florida or a northern, but I can tell you it's a cottonmouth for sure. One of the other things that are nice about having some kind of information about snakes is if you want to report snake sightings to some sort of a biological database, you can call them up and say, hey, I'm here in Arlington, Texas, and I found a cottonmouth. And that's good information for them. They can keep track of sightings. They can keep track of ranges. And for instance, if you're just on the fringe of a range or just outside of it and you say you see something, then they can adjust that range a little bit. So I've never actually done that, but they say that you can do that. This particular slide shows the range for the different varieties of the copperheads that we have in the United States. And you can see that we have the broad-banded copperhead out to the west of us and through our area. Then we have a hybrid zone where they interbreed. And of course, in that hybrid zone, you'll have all three types. And then you have the eastern copperhead on east of our area here. So we'll show you some photos of those different ones and show you the differences. And it's pretty amazing what you'll see there. So we also have the Texas coral snake, and you can see the range there. And we'll get to the photos here in a minute. But it ranges on into Louisiana, a little corner of Oklahoma there, and some up into Arkansas. And it looks like any other of the other types of coral snakes that you'll notice. So they vary a little bit, but to me, I can't tell the difference. They look like a coral snake. All right, I'll usually butcher the name on this one. This is the Western Massasauga rattlesnake range, and you can see it borders more to the west of our area, but you could potentially see them in the western parts of the Metroplex here. I've never seen one here, and I haven't seen one in our snake page where they, that was in our area. I've seen them where they post them a little bit west. Then we have the timber rattlesnake. It's also known as the canebrake rattlesnake, and it's a snake that more formally likes to use the woods. It stays in the woods quite a bit, so it's quite a bit in East Texas. It does range into our area, but again, I haven't seen any photos in my snake group of a timber rattler in the DFW area. If we do have them, they're probably going to be a little bit towards the East Dallas area, but they really don't like urban areas. So they're going to stay pretty much up in the woods. One of the other things I told Abby when I first got online here is that number one, I'm a snake enthusiast. I'm not an expert. And like I said, I realize some of you people might have quite a bit more knowledge than me. And I'm not territorial when it comes to making presentations. I like for all the information to come out. And we're for sure going to have a Q&A towards the end of it. And if we do have some people that are actually herpetologists or in that venue and a question is asked, I'm going to let that question go out to the group before I answer it. And then if we can't come to an agreement on what the answer might be, well, then I'll jump in and tell you guys what I think. All right, so, excuse me. Then we have the pygmy rattlesnake, and there's several varieties of them. There's an eastern and a western. There's a dusky pygmy rattlesnake, which is in the Florida area. You'll find them up in the dunes. For those of you who like the beach, I like the beach too in Florida, and we have seen a dusky pygmy rattlesnake, a very, very close proximity to the dunes of the beach. They have coral snakes out there too, and of course cottonmouths and several other types of species out there. So if you like the beach and you want to go out there at night, please pay attention and take a light so that you don't step on something. So back to the presentation. Pygmy rattlesnake range, you can see the western comes into Texas through our area there, and you'll see those. And we'll get to the photos here in a minute. And then, of course, the western diamondback rattlesnake is in our area, but mostly out towards the western part of it. All right, so I'm going to let this bake in for just a minute. If you just went on head shape alone for this particular snake, get a good look at it. I'm going to let you digest it for a minute. And it's going to be a rhetorical question, but would you consider that snake, based on its head shape alone, to be venomous or non-venomous? So look at it again, and then I'll tell you. This is a non-venomous, it's a harmless diamondback water snake, and it's easily identified by some key features. Now, I know I was going to talk about venomous, but I want to also give a little bit of education on non-venomous. Now, one thing you'll notice is the eye position on top of the head. It's almost got a goofy look to it. It looks you in the eye, and it's like saying to you, I'm really goofy, I'm just a water snake. The eye position is easily seen from the top of the head. If you were indoctrinated into the myths about snakes, you would say, oh, that's a triangular head, that snake is venomous. Well, in fact, the venomous snakes that we're going to talk about, with the exception of the coral snake, are going to have triangular shaped heads, but obviously the coral snake does not. But just because a snake has a triangular shaped head, it is not necessarily venomous. So that's one myth that I'd like to dispel right away. Another way I can tell this is a diamond-backed water snake is the very faint markings are in a chain link pattern. So it may be difficult for you to see, but I can see it easily because I've seen a lot of these photos, and I know because of the face that it's a water snake. Another thing that you'll see is there are some vertical bars. If you notice, there's vertical bars that cross the mouth line there. They go down from the bottom all the way up to the top above the mouth. Those are called labial bars, and there are no venomous snakes in the United States that actually have those labial bars. So there's several different things about the snake that I can see that I know make it non-venomous. Another thing you'll notice is that his head is kind of flattened out in this lower left one here, and that is a reaction to feeling threatened. Sometimes they'll flatten out their head, and it makes them look more triangular. All right, so I've discussed the myth of the head shape. So I just wanted to remind you that a triangular head shouldn't be an instant death sentence for a snake, especially water snakes. One thing you'll find out is if you have water snakes and you kill them all off, well, then the cottonmouths will come in. So you probably want to keep the water snakes. All right, so another snake myth. Somebody, you don't have to tell me, but think about it to yourself, and we'll talk about it in Q&A if we need to. So one myth you'll see out there is non-venomous snakes have round eyes. So let that sink in for a minute. Non-venomous snakes have round eyes. Well, that in fact is a myth, and here's why. Many of the pit vipers, or most of them, all of them I believe, do have in high light conditions that slit of the pupil. But if you look at this copperhead, you can see that the pupil is also blown out and almost round. So you can be confused if it's low light conditions, whether something has a slit pupil or a round pupil. So you can't, one thing you can't do is go on one distinguishing feature alone. Well, yeah, if it has a rattle on the tail, it's probably a rattlesnake, right? However, if you can't see the tail and you can't see some of the other marks, you know, it becomes a little bit muddled. But most of the snakes I've learned, you can identify them based on 3, 4, 5 features that you can look for. And that's what you need to learn to do if you're doing snake identification, is identify more than one feature, because one feature will cause you to make an inaccurate identification. All right, so now we're going to get to the photos. So those of you who don't like the photos, I guess y'all can close your eyes or something. But let's start with the cottonmouth, also known as the water moccasin. So it has no labial bars. It doesn't have those dark lines that cross the jaw. Another thing that's really good to look for is a bandit mask. It has a dark black mask that runs from the back of its head through its eyes. So the bandit mask, it's really easy to see in most cases, unless the snake is really, really dark, and they can get pretty dark sometimes. Now they also have supraocular scales. So those are the scales that are right above the eye. Now remember I said that you could see those googly eyes on the water snake directly from above? But if you look at a cottonmouth directly from above or nearly above, you cannot see their eyes because that supraocular scale is preventing you from seeing them. Another thing it does, it gives them kind of an angry facial expression. Of course they're not angry, they just have these eyebrow scales that make them look like they're frowning. But the characteristic pattern sometimes is difficult to spot when they're darkened. So these snakes, as they age, they tend to get darker and darker, and sometimes you can't even hardly see any markings at all. But when the markings are present, the margins of the markings are what some people call pixelated. You can also call it jagged, as opposed to the copperhead, who has more smooth margins on their markings. So that's one thing that you can tell to keep, know the difference between a copperhead and a cottonmouth. Now, the other thing that the cottonmouths do is they have a characteristic mouth gaping when threatened. So when you pull up on one and you're going to get near them, they'll kind of bow up at you and they'll open that mouth and show you those fangs and show you that white or light colored color inside their mouth. The keeled scales are a little bit more difficult to find, but when not threatened, but they're alert to your presence, what they can do is sometimes they'll do what I call an alert pose. They're not gaping yet, but they'll be eyeballing you, and they'll hold their head about 45 degrees from the ground. It's not a distinguishing feature, but in the presence of other features, it kind of helps me identify a cottonmouth. Uh, Like some other snakes, such as the copperhead, the juveniles will have yellow tail tips, and I'm told that that is so that they can wiggle that little tail tip, and other animals will think it's food, and when they come up, then they'll eat them. And then one less thing that you can look at that kind of helps is many snakes have a flower pattern of the scales on their head. The cottonmouth does have this also, but that alone does not make them a cottonmouth. And they have characteristic markings on the chin also. So we'll show some photos. So I told you about the labial bars. On the left, that guy there is a water snake. All right, so you can easily see the labial bars. You can see kind of the googly eyes with no frown. But then if you look over here on the right, there's a direct comparison of a water snake and a cottonmouth. So on the bottom, you can see the bar across the eye and the supraocular scales and no labial bars, and easily identified as a cottonmouth, whereas the goofy water snake up there, he's pretty easy to spot. So let's look at some of the markings. On the lower left there, you can see that cottonmouth, and he is doing the gaping activity, or the gaping behavior, that when they feel threatened, they will open their mouth and try and scare you and say, I'm about to bite you. Then on the top left, you can see where he's got that 45-degree kind of alert position that I mentioned. Another thing that you can notice on some of the markings of a couple of these snakes, you'll notice that one on the lower left, he's getting pretty dark, and those markings are not real easily seen. But the younger one up on the top left, you can see the markings are easily identified, and that they have kind of a jagged edge to them when you see them. The top right there, there's one that's kind of intermediately marked, but you can see on all three of them that bandit mask and then the typical markings. So a lot of people have trouble with the cottonmouth versus the copperhead, and if you look at them side by side in that picture, the copperhead's head color is totally different. There's no bandit mask. They do have the typical pit viper triangular head, both of them, and you can see the markings are a lot darker on the cottonmouth. The copperhead generally ranges from tan to chocolate in their markings, and also copper looking. So let me check my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting something. Looks to me like I've got that one. All right, so another question you'll see out there, or comments that you'll frequently see on these from the new folks, is that these snakes are aggressive. Well, there's a difference between aggressive. I'll give you an example. If you were to contrast the Ukraine and Russia right now, which one would you say is the aggressor and which one is being defensive? So if you consider it that way, and you look, when a snake is threatened and it does the gaping or it strikes at you or something, that's not really aggressive. It's being defensive. So another thing that people will say, and there may be somebody in the crowd that swears that a cottonmouth chased them, but I've never seen a video of a cottonmouth chasing anybody. A lot of people will say, well, how can I post a video if it's chasing me? Well, how many third-party videos do you see on YouTube? I mean, you see all kinds of people videoing someone else doing something, and I've never seen one where somebody, a third party, took a video of a cottonmouth that was chasing them. So that's one thing that we always bring out in the groups, and people are just steadfastly saying, I got chased, I got chased, I got chased. You know, there's some other explanation. Right, so let's get on to the copperhead. On the left top is an eastern copperhead. On the right is a broad-banded copperhead, and you remember the eastern copperhead was on the east side of the metroplex but infiltrated in, and then the broadband infiltrates in from the west, and then there's that area where they interbreed. And if you look down at the bottom, that one at the bottom is most likely going to be a hybrid between the broadband and the eastern. So we have all three of these in our area. So let's see here. They all have the supraocular scales. They have that typical copperhead coloring, the tan and the chocolate. But the Eastern, if you look at it, it has what they call Hershey's Kisses. So anytime you see those Hershey's Kisses and that color of a snake, that's going to be most likely a copperhead. And then on the other one, it's not really Hershey's Kisses. They're broad banded. So that's why they call them a broad banded. And then you get some really strange designs between the hybrids. The saddles don't go all the way over. They're kind of like helter skelter. They don't meet, all those kinds of things. This is a photo one of my coworkers took, and this was taken just south of the Red River and just west of Interstate 35. Our pipe runs through there, and they were doing some right-of-way clearing, and he said that they never saw this snake. It was sitting in leaves until it moved. So they have a very, very good camouflage for in the fall, whenever the leaves have fallen and they're in those leaves, and you got to watch out if you're raking leaves and all those things. This is a pygmy rattlesnake. There's several different kinds. One of the things that you'll notice on these is they do have the pit viper triangular head. And I kind of like this little marking here on this one. It's got like double black lightning bolts, and you see a lot of the rattlesnakes have those. It also will have very, very small rattles on the tail, and it won't necessarily even be able to rattle them. They're almost like the growth is stunted of them. And another thing I'd like to add as far as rattles goes is that, number one, a lot of people believe that you can count the age of a snake by the number of rattles. It's actually, that's the number of times it's molted, and they could molt several times a year. So that's not how you can age a rattlesnake. And then also, is using rattles as an identifier specifically for a rattlesnake is, you need to be careful with that because the rattles break off. So you can have a rattlesnake that has no rattles at all. But you can notice this blotchy pattern here on these pygmy rattlesnakes. They're very small, and they frequently have this orange little stripe that runs down their back. So they're really hard to detect. Man, some of these snake guys, they'll be driving down the road and they'll see one a quarter of a mile away, and it'll be about a foot long or something, and I'm like, how do you see that? It's crazy. All right, this is the Massasauga rattlesnake, and it's characterized by a Pac-Man shaped pattern. Now, it looks to people who aren't familiar with it kind of like a rat snake or maybe a bull snake, but if you get really right down to it, of course, you're going to have the typical pit viper head, and you're going to have these half moon shapes, or I call them Pac-Man shapes, and this would be out towards the west end. And you'll notice here there's that brown lightning bolt kind of shape on the head marking that you'll see on many of the rattlesnakes. So pretty much if you see a snake and you're not sure about it and you see that Pac-Man shape down the dorsal end, then you might need to stay away from that. It might be a Massasauga rattlesnake. Now, this is the one, the timber rattler, that I said you probably won't see a lot of in our area. If we do, it's going to probably be in the eastern ends of our areas or maybe the northern woodland areas. But one thing on this one that you can notice, other than it being a rattlesnake with the typical rattlesnake types of things, the triangular head and things like, and the rattles, things like that, they have that black band across there, and it reminds, people say it's a bat wing. It's a bat wing. So if you see something like this and it's got that bat wing marking on there, then it might be a timber rattler. These are pretty large snakes, especially if you get back in the eastern woods where they've got a good food supply and there's not much predatory pressure on them and things like that. They get pretty big. So that's the typical timber rattler. Now this is your western diamondback, and it's got the typical diamondback shape that everybody thinks what a snake should look like. If you ask a child to draw a snake, they're probably going to draw diamonds on the back, because that's what they've seen so many of. Characteristics on this one, some of them are pretty interesting. Other than the normal pit viper head and the diamondback markings, you'll notice this tail. I call it like a barber tail, but it's alternating black and white prior to seeing the rattles on the back. And of course, you could have this and still not have any rattles on it. It'd still be a rattlesnake. Now, one of the other things that, I think I've got another slide. Hold on a minute. Let me go to the coral snake. All right, so the coral snake, this is the Texas coral snake, and I showed you the ranges, and you'll typically, they can typically be confused with some other species, such as the scarlet king snake, which has a red head, but the scarlet king snake is not in Texas. The Texas scarlet snake is not found in the DFW area. Now, we do have a lot of milk snakes around here, but the one thing that you can know about these is that those bands go all the way around the body. And on many of those other snakes that get confused for a coral snake, the bands do not go all the way around the body. So my next slide might be an eye-opener for you guys. Red and yellow kill-a-fellow. So you'll see that time and time and time and time again on these snake pages, and you will get corrected for that. We all grew up with that. We all know the rhyme, but sometimes people they can't remember the correct rhyme. So they discourage using of the rhyme. And there's a couple of good reasons for that. I already covered one, and one of them is that people will mess up with the rhyme. And the other one is guess what that is on the top left there? That is an aberrant coral snake. Likewise, the one on the lower left is also an aberrant coral snake. The one on the right top, that's pretty dark. And if it's really, really dark, you might not be able to tell that that's red touching yellow at all. And then the middle photo there, those are albino coral snakes. So likewise, the one on the lower right, who in their world would have thought that that was a coral snake? So you need to be really careful with regard to some of these species and using some of the nursery rhymes to identify them. All right, so time for a quiz. I already covered this one. Nope, you can't count the age of a rattlesnake by the number of rattles. Another one you'll hear out is rattlesnakes learned not to rattle so that hogs won't get them. I wonder how many of you guys have heard that one. Well, that's really, they didn't learn anything. That's a lesson in natural selection. It turns out that the snakes that are less likely to rattle reproduce and start to dominate more than the snakes that are freaky and tend to rattle quickly. So if that is in fact true, that snakes are not rattling as often as they used to, it's just environmental pressure. They didn't learn to do anything. So also, non-venomous snakes wiggle their tails to mimic a rattlesnake. Well, you can call that mimicry if you want to, but one of the guys that I follow on the snake page says that, well, probably most likely snakes have always wiggled their tails like that, but when they evolved to have rattles, then they started rattling their tails like that because it was just a characteristic of snakes. Therefore, snakes that came from the same precursor all tend to rattle their tails like that, whether they're a rattlesnake or not. And you'll see this when you come up on a non-venomous snake. A lot of times they will shake that tail and it'll rustle the leaves close by, and you'll think, oh, that's a rattlesnake, but no, it's not. It's a non-venomous snake. This is a non-venomous hognose snake. Now, if you're not really looking close, you could maybe think that this looks like a pygmy rattler, but they're generally quite a bit bigger. And they're characteristic, and this snake is venomous, but it's not harmful to humans. It's got prey-specific venom. So they usually say that it's harmless. They don't say that it's non-venomous. And it's got the cute little turned up nose there. And it can also flatten out to look like a cobra. And another thing that they'll do is they'll twist and writhe on the ground like they're playing dead. So a lot of people will call them the drama noodle. And this is a lot of people's favorite snake, is the hognose snake. It is harmless, but it has prey-specific venom that is not harmful to humans. Now here's some non-venomous snakes in the area, just to kind of like round out your education. These are all rat snakes. So rat snakes can take many colors. The western rat snake generally is kind of a grayish with black markings or dark brown markings that you'll mostly see in our area. They can get almost dark. I've mistaken one for an indigo snake before, which is also a Texas snake species I think it's threatened. The one on the lower left there is some people call them a corn snake. It's a red rat snake to some people. And then one of the things that you'll see on some rat snakes that kind of give you an idea what they are is this ghost face on the back of their head. But you can see that they do take very different kinds of colors. And you'll notice the sheriff's badge that I talked about before. You can see that it's concave on both ends. So if you see the sheriff's badges all the way down the back and you see this head shape is totally different than the venomous snakes we discussed. And they actually look kind of cute in the face. And then excuse me, one of the things you'll notice about rat snakes is that they get into precarious places. If you find a snake and you ask yourself, how did it get there? It's probably a rat snake, because they're very, very good climbers. All right, so several non-venomous species of water snakes in Texas. I've talked about killing water snakes and the cottonmouths coming in. All venomous water snakes have labial bars. Water snakes have a goofy expression, and they're commonly called googly eyes, just reinforcing that. And then characteristic markings distinguish them from a cottonmouth, the labial bars. So this is a plain-bellied or a yellow-bellied water snake. And again, he's looking you right in the eye, and you can tell he's just goofy. And these things start to get dark. And when they get older, they get dark. And if you look at these white bands here, they'll eventually fade and fade and fade to where you can barely see them. And they call them chalk marks among the snake pages. So you can look at the labial bars, you can look at the head and the eyes, and you can know it's a water snake right away, but then you can identify that it's a plain-bellied water snake or a yellow-bellied water snake by these chalk lines down the back. All right, so I showed you that other photo of the chain link pattern on the diamondback water snake, and you can see that it's got a distinctive chain link pattern, and you can see that chain link pattern, and then you look and you see the labial bars and the type of eye placement, and you right away know that that's a diamondback water snake. These are both broad-banded water snakes, and the broad-banded water snakes differs from the copperhead in that it has like tornadoes instead of Hershey Kisses types of marking. So they start down low at the bottom, narrow, and then widen out at the top. Winding down. All right, so this is a lot of people's favorite snake. This is a speckled king snake, and a lot of people claim they like them because they eat venomous snakes. There are several different species that will eat any snake, no matter whether it's venomous or not. This is probably one of them, and there are several different other species that people say they like. You know, maybe the bull snake, and things like that that will eat other snakes. So this is a very beneficial snake. It keeps the rodents down and also potentially eats snakes that you might not want around. But it also eats snakes that you might want around too. All right, so this is a bull snake, and it differs from the rat snake in that it does have the sheriff's badges, but if you look at a rat snake, it's usually got like single dots between the sheriff's badges. And the bull snake tends to be a little bit more busy whenever you look at the markings. So you have the sheriff badges and all this busyness going on here. And you'll notice the labial bars there on it, and no supraocular scales on this one. All right, so that's the end of my presentation, and I think we can open it up for questions or comments. And like I said, I would really enjoy it if there's anyone else that would like to make any comments on the presentation or ask questions or any of that. So I'll open up the floor, and you guys can fire away. I certainly know there's somebody smarter than me in here that got their information from somewhere else besides a Facebook page.
Renee's got her hand raised. Go for it, Renee.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Appreciate it. But it's definitely not me. I'm not a snake expert, but I am a Hershey Kisses expert. And I did not see those Hershey Kisses or tornadoes. If you wouldn't mind explaining that to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else want to jump in there before I jump in there? All right. So the water snake, the broad-banded water snake is non-venomous. So they're going to get a lot of clues besides the tornadoes, whether it is actually a copperhead or a water snake, right? So if you'll just stick to the Hershey's Kisses and the coloring of the copperhead, you won't ever really confuse them for a water snake because the head is so totally different. You got the goofy eyes versus the supraocular scales. You know, you got the pit viper head. Of course, the water snakes can have a little bit of a triangular head. But you stick with the labial bars, and if you look for those labial bars and the goofy look on the face, you won't even really get to the fact of whether that's a tornado or a Hershey's Kiss, right? And same vice versa. If you're looking for the Hershey's Kiss and you see the typical copperhead type characteristics, you're not going to mistake that for a water snake. But one thing I didn't cover in the whole deal is, you know, what do I do if I see a snake and I don't want to kill it, but I want it to go away? And Abby and I discussed earlier that if you spray them with a hot water hose, lots of times they'll mind their business and go on. So if you're not sure, here's a tip. Join one of those pages for your area and post a photo of it. And somebody will say, that is a whatever it is. Please refrain from AI. AI is idiocracy. The AI will misidentify snakes all over the place. It is incapable of identifying snakes. So try to avoid using AI to do that. All right. Anything else? Anyone?
Cheryl, jump on in.
Stan, I am a member of the Texas State Identification because I found a 6-foot, well, it was a rat snake, but it had diamonds on it. And I think you showed a picture there at the very end on the different types of rat snakes. And there's a lot of them out there. But here's my question. And if you did touch on it, I have no idea. Baby snakes, can they be venomous? I mean, if they bite you, can they do as much harm as an adult venomous snake?
All right. My understanding is that the venom is the same. It's not more concentrated because they're small. Their prey is going to be small too, correct? So they don't need as much of it. Juvenile snake bites are as dangerous as adult, but they do inject less venom. They do not have the capability to inject as much venom as an adult. So if you just look at that from that standpoint, you know, a juvenile snake, venomous snake bite is not necessarily going to be worse or better than an adult. It just depends on the amount of venom you get. And of course, you're probably aware that there is such thing as a dry bite. You can get bitten by a venomous snake and not do anything at all. And you're going to know pretty quickly whether it envenomated you or not. One of the other things you'll see on the snake pages is people will say, is this snake poisonous? And people freak out. It's not well, they always say the difference between poisonous and venomous is if it's venomous and it bites you, it's not good. If it's poisonous and you eat it, then it's poisonous. So it's a technicality that people don't understand and people kind of rant on it.
Unfortunately, I'm like one of those people that you mentioned in the very beginning. All snakes are bad, so I don't like them. But the small snakes, the baby snakes, I know you said they go after baby things, unless your 4-year-old niece or nephew have brought it into the house and you don't know what kind of a snake it is. That's why I was asking, because they did bring something in. It was totally black. It looked like a long worm.
Mm-hmm.
But but I don't know what kind it was, but I just told them to leave them alone.
Yeah, well, just right off the bat, right off the top of my head, I wouldn't even venture a guess at all. And that's just one big thing is people will say they'll try and describe a snake, and on the snake pages they'll say we got to have a photo, because we just don't know what you're describing. But generally, juvenile rat snakes are not dark like that. So it most likely, if it was all black, not a rat snake. That's about all I can tell you. It's probably some kind of a grass snake or something like that. Generally, yeah,
Oh, sorry to
generally
interrupt.
generally the younger snakes are, they're just not that dark unless it is a dark colored snake from the get-go. Most of them
Okay.
turn dark after they age.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you. Yeah, this was solid black. So, yeah, thank you.
Could have been an indigo snake for all I know. I don't know. Which is a very good snake.
I have no more questions. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks.
Yeah, and I just had one question. I mean, the only real snakes I ever run into in my backyard are gonna be like, what we call like a garden snake, where it is just kind of that darker colored little guy. And obviously they're not, venomous, but they let off like that little stinky stank, when you pick them up, the musk or whatever it is.
Yes.
What kind of snakes are those? Like, is there a more technical term than just a garden snake?
To be honest with you, here's my theory on snake identification. I first and foremost try to determine if they are venomous or not. And that's pretty easy to do. And then when you start getting to all of the different types of garter snakes and grass snakes and all that, I'm really weak because it just doesn't bother me.
Well, now you've corrected me. I was calling it a garden snake, and it's a garter snake.
Well,
I wasn't even right on the name.
I believe there are some garden snakes too.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of them, some of them have linear stripes that run up and down their back, I really have not I haven't spent as much time as I need to determine, those different types of non-venomous, because I'm mainly focused on health and safety for my crews. And I want to make sure that if we run into something that I can say, okay, that's not a bad, let me pick it up and take it and throw it over here in the bushes and let's get to work, So I don't recommend you doing that unless you have a high level of competence in snake identification. Leave it alone.
Julie just posted something. It almost looked like what she just posted, Stan.
Oh, is that right?
That's the kind I've seen too. The ones that have been like out in the garden, they look like a little worm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's some
although
of
it was
them
skinnier than that. It was a younger version of that.
Yeah, there's some of them called glass lizards that are actually a lizard, but they're a legless lizard, and I don't know how they came up with that. There's you see a lot of in gardens. You'll see rough earth snakes, and they're just brown snakes.
Yeah.
And you'll see many different varieties. I didn't even look up how many species are in the DFW area. I just looked up the venomous and then threw in some of the ones I'm familiar with that I know are in this area. So, like I said, this is kind of like a beginner's introduction into, hey, get into a snake group and figure this stuff out,
So, Stan, you are correct. I forgot to post where I lived when I posted the picture of the snake and asked for an ID.
Mm-hmm.
They go, let us know. I got a little message on the side. He goes, okay, can you post where you're at? I said, sure.
Oh, and you know what? They want a general area where you're at, but they don't want an exact area. And the reason they don't want to post an exact area or an address or anything like that, other than the obvious creep stuff, is that people collect snakes and people poach them and people sell them. So if you post a rat snake and you say exactly where it's down at the park at the corner or whatever, they can run down there and they can nab that snake and then they can either sell it or keep it or whatever. So they just want a general area.
Yeah, I followed suit with what I read and kind of figured that and just said what county I was in.
Very good. That's perfect. Now some of your ranges split counties, but that's not sacred. You could find a snake anywhere in that county, even if it's split. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Stan. Interesting. And Julianne, thank you for posting that.
Yeah, now we know. And I've been calling that thing a garden snake all my whole life. Now we know its actual name.
Well,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I mean, I think there are garden snakes, so I don't know.
Maybe so.
You know,
Maybe so.
so
Yep. Yeah, but it
like
looked
I
just like that
said,
little guy.
I'm a health and safety guy. I'm not a snake guy. So, but I do revel in the opportunity to do things like this and give people at least an interest in doing further research on their own. And I will add that in your research, when you go through, I said don't use AI photography to identify snakes. There's also, if you use AI to ask questions about snakes, some of the answers, as you know, AI is inaccurate in some cases. So, be careful about that. Even some of your very well respected nature types of publications will make mistakes about snakes. So just watch out for that. And
Hey,
thank you. I
seem
enjoyed
very
it.
knowledgeable about snakes, Stan. Thank you very much. I think it was a good presentation.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation from Abby. And I can't remember how we decided on this, whether she said, "Hey, have you got anything?" or if I think I
You
contacted
did.
her. Yeah, I contacted her and said, "Hey, I got this snake deal." And she said, "Oh, that'd be cool." So there you go.
Well, thank you so much, Stan. We have been recording this, so we will I'll end up posting it from our DFW Environmental Pros page. So if somebody didn't get to see it and they want to see it, feel free to pass it on.
All right. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And y'all have a
Thank you
good day.
guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.